Hi, everyone, and welcome to Keeping the Dream Alive, the college and career readiness event for the Parent Engagement Program at the Santa Clara County Office of Education. I'm Jamie Koo, one of your parent engagement specialists. And Claudia?
And my name is Claudia Aguilera. I'm the bilingual engagement specialist.
Yeah, today we're so happy to present a DACA workshop for you called Applying for DACA 2021 Updates for New Applicants. We are so thankful for the partnership that we have with the Office of Immigrant Relations and all the other organizations shown here. We're going to be hearing from them today. Sorry. Here we go. Teresa?
Hi, I'm Teresa Castellanos, and I'm with the Office of Immigrant Relations. I've been working with immigrant communities for over 30 years. I'm very excited to be with you on this event. There's a lot of change in DACA, and there's a lot of opportunity in DACA, and it's really important that families and parents know about what are the opportunities and what are the things that I need to weigh out to see if this is something that's beneficial for me. For that reason, we are bringing to you an immigration lawyer, Erica Rivera, who's been practicing immigration law for the last 12 years. She will be giving us an update on DACA and where it stands at this point. We will have two coordinators for undocu centers at our local universities, one at the community college level and one at the state level, who will talk about the programs and support that exist for undocumented students. And then finally, we will end with DACA recipient who will talk about her experience and will let us know what are the challenges and what are the opportunities that get opened up with this opportunity. So with that, it is my honor to introduce our speakers that we have today. We will start off with Erica Rivera.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us. We're going to go through some quick DACA updates. So let's move into it super quickly. What you need to know is that DACA was under attack for basically the entire Trump administration. But luckily in November of last year, there was a district court judge who ruled that DACA needed to be reinstated and that it needed to be reinstated to the way that it was rolled out in 2012. So let's talk about what applications are being accepted by USCIS now, and we can go to the next slide. So let's talk about the DACA program status. So basically, USCIS is accepting initial DACA applications, which is for people that have never applied for DACA. Also DACA renewal applications, which is for folks that already have DACA and need to basically renew their application every 2 years. And also advanced parole applications. Advanced parole applications are for folks who have DACA who want to travel for educational reasons, work-related reasons, or also humanitarian grounds. And we can go to the next slide. So let's talk about general information about DACA for a second. The filing fee for both DACA initial applications and renewal applications is $495. The processing time for renewals is approximately 2 to 3 months. The processing time for initial applications, so for a first-time applicant, is all over the place right now because we hadn't been accepting applications for a long time. It takes 4 to 6 months is what we're mostly seeing. However, I just spoke to an immigration attorney the other day and she said that she filed one and it took about 2 months. So as you can see, the filing fee, or I'm sorry, the filing times can be all over the place. And lastly, I want everyone to remember this, all DACA applicants, whether they're initial applicants or renewal applicants, will be fingerprinted. And that means that USCIS will be running an extensive background check. I don't say this to scare people. I just say this to let people know that if you do have some prior contact with law enforcement in your past, you're going to want to look into that before immigration does. So let's move on to the next slide. So let's talk about the benefits and the limitations of DACA, okay? The benefits obviously are employment authorization, which is just a fancy way of saying you get a work permit and it's valid for 2 years and they can be renewed every 2 years, which is super great. It's protection from removal or deportation. And you also have the option, like I mentioned earlier, to travel abroad if it's for educational, employment, or humanitarian reasons. Now let's talk about DACA's limits. DACA is temporary. It is not permanent relief. So it's not like having a lawful permanent resident card or being a citizen of the United States. You cannot travel abroad freely under DACA. You have to ask for permission, and DACA can be taken away or lost. So let me just explain that really quickly. If you commit an offense, a criminal offense, certain criminal offenses will take away your DACA immediately. So the most common thing that I see is if someone gets like a DUI, so a driving under the influence, that automatically disqualifies someone from getting DACA or from losing their DACA if they already have it. Okay, so that's just one example, and we can talk about more examples later. Next slide, please. So let's talk about the DACA requirements. Now, these are going to be several slides because DACA has a million requirements. So let's talk about them. First of all, the person who's applying would have to be under the age of 31 on June 15th, 2012. So this is when the program started. So people had to be under the age of 31 on that day when the program was announced, okay? You must be at least 15 years old to submit a DACA application to USCIS. And USCIS is the office that processes DACA applications. The rules are different if people are in removal proceedings. They can be as young as 14 years old. You also must have arrived in the United States before the age of 16. So if you were 16 when you came to the United States, that's too late. But if you were literally 15 and a half, 15 and 3/4, that would allow you to qualify for DACA. Next slide, please. Also, let's talk about a bunch of these other requirements. One of them is an educational requirement. It's long. Let's talk about it because it does encompass a lot of folks. You can currently be in school. You could have graduated or obtained a certificate of completion from high school. You could have obtained a general education development certificate known as a GED, or you could have been honorably discharged from the Coast Guard or the Armed Forces of the United States. So all of those in that list meet the educational requirement. You also have to have been continuously residing in the United States since June 15th, 2007, up until present time. So remember, that's a really long time at this point, right? That's almost what, 14 years of presence in the United States. You also have to have been physically present on, there's that date again, June 15th, 2012, which was the day that the DACA program was announced by the Obama administration. And also you have to be present in the United States, obviously, at the time that you make your request for deferred action with USCIS. Next slide, please. More requirements. I told you guys there was a lot. So you also have to have had no lawful status on June 15th, 2012. Again, the date that DACA was announced. That means that you were here undocumented, or maybe you had a tourist visa and it expired before that date. You couldn't have had lawful status on that date. And also, here's the fun stuff, the criminal stuff. You cannot have been convicted of just one felony, 3 or more misdemeanors, or one significant misdemeanor, which we won't get into the legal definition of that, but there is a list of significant misdemeanors that automatically disqualify people from applying for DACA. Also, we want to make sure that the applicant cannot otherwise pose a threat to national security or public safety. Does that sound super broad to you guys? That's because it is. I've seen cases where basically someone can get in trouble because they had prior gang affiliation. So that's why whenever you speak to someone about applying for DACA, you want to be really honest with them about your prior contact with law enforcement if you've had prior contact with law enforcement. Next slide, please. And so if you have any questions, obviously, we always recommend that you speak to legal counsel, and also our office is somewhere where you can come and we can direct you to a bunch of legal service providers. We have also provided a flyer that Jamie will talk about later, and I want to pass it on to the next presenter.
Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Angelica Esquivel, and I am the program coordinator at HEFAS. At De Anza College. And so I'll be talking a little bit about, if you're thinking about going to college, what are some tips and also what things you need to know about before you start college. So next slide, please. First, I'll be talking about just in general anyone can go to college, right? Your status, your immigration status does not impede you from going to college. Of course, depending on what college you want to go to, there's going to be different like requirements and different things that you need. If you want to go into the 4-year, there are certain requirements that you need to apply. For community college, you also need to apply, but as long as you're 18 or you have a high school diploma or a GED, you can certainly attend community college and then transfer into a 4-year. Another thing that I want to mention is that we do have a FERPA law at universities, which is the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. And what that means is that, you know, all of the information that you share with the universities on your application, or even with a counselor or someone who works at the university, that your information is confidential and kept private, so because it's considered student records. And that also means that from parents, right, your information like your grades or information of your schedules, what classes you're taking, cannot be shared with parents or with anyone else, like you know, with immigration, for example. So there is that law at the universities. And then, you know, you all heard about DACA. And DACA is a great resource, and that's at the federal level. But we also have policies that are specific to California and that impact your access to education or funding. So AB 540 is, you know, very popular. It's been around since 2001, and it's allows undocumented students who went through high school, you know, adult school, and in general K through 12 to apply for in-state tuition, because if you don't apply for AB 540, you would be considered an international student or an out-of-state student, and the fees are about 3, sometimes more times more in cost. So AB 540 is a form that you would have to, if you qualify, you would have to submit once you decide what college you want to go to. And then if you do qualify for AB 540, there's also the California Dream Act, which has been around since, you know, 2012, 2013. And that actually allows you to get some financial aid, and that's state financial aid. So it's things to cover, you know, your classes, books, sometimes other things like housing, or depending on how much money you get. And that is dependent on sometimes your parents' taxes. And, you know, we always have support. If you need to submit that application, you can always reach out to the college to help you fill out the application. And so if you are a senior, or you're not in school, but you want to go into college, you want to make sure you apply for the California Dream Act before you start. And there's other financial resources. So scholarships is always a great way to be able to fund your education. And scholarships, you know, it's kind of like a part-time job. You apply, you write your essays, and then you get the financial support to pay for classes. There's Immigrants Rising is a great resource for you to get information on scholarships and a lot of opportunities. There's also an app on your phone that you can download. It's called Dreamers Roadmap, and that one offers scholarships and a lot of resources, like even like internships and other like research opportunities, and that, depending on your area, will give you resources. Another one is my Undocumented Life blog. That one also, people share a lot of resources. So there's a lot of ways that you can fund your education, right? You do have it depends on where you go. You will have to figure out, you know, what you are eligible for and how to pay for that. Next slide, please. And, you know, when you're thinking about what college you want to go to, you definitely want to look at what are the resources that college has. So for example, us at De Anza College, we have HEFAS, right? Higher Education for AB 540 students, and we specifically support undocumented students, whether you have DACA or not. So you want to make sure that whatever college you want to go to, that they have that resource. You'll hear about the resource at San Jose State after this, but you also want to, you know, kind of figure out what that school is like. Do they have a welcoming environment, and what kind of policies they have that support undocumented students, right? For us, we have a policy for for students who maybe don't qualify for AB 540 or DACA that still want to go to college, they can be part-time students and take 6 units and still pay that in-state tuition. So De Anza is a great place to go, but there's a lot of other colleges around your area that have a lot of resources. And then some other tips, you want to know your rights, attend know your rights workshops that are either offered in the community or by the colleges or schools. You want to also know what legal resources are offered at the colleges. Look out for deadlines. The California Dream Act deadline is March 2nd every year. You can still apply to it after the March 2nd deadline, but you always want to try to meet all of your deadlines of when you need to submit things to go to that college. And always feel free to contact someone at the college. If you are interested in, for example, coming to De Anza, you would contact me, and we can always figure out how, what is the best way to get you started at the college. And also participate and get involved. That's how you'll hear about more resources, and you'll find a community, because you're not alone. And there's a lot of resources out there, and there's people who want to support undocumented students with or without DACA. And so, our information for HEFAS is on the slide, but it's ab540hefas@gmail.com. And you can always connect with us. And even if you don't attend De Anza, we can still help connect you. So now I'll pass it over to another resource, to Ana.
Thank you so much, Angelica. Hello, everyone. My name is Ana Navarrete. I am the program director of the Undocumented Student Resource Center, which is our Dream Center at San Jose State University. So as my colleague Angelica mentioned, a lot of when it comes to FERPA, the California Dream Act, and AB 540, all of those policies also apply to the four-year university. So regardless of what pathway you will be taking, whether it's going directly to the community college or going directly into the four-year college, you will be dealing with a lot of these things, such as the California Dream Act and trying to qualify for in-state tuition. So you can be able to afford and also benefit from some of the things that the California Dream Act and state aid are able to provide you with. So at the Ford University, in terms of the CSU, there are resource centers across all 23 campuses. At the UC, you will also find very similar that almost every single UC, all 10 UCs also have legal resources and resources for dreamers at their campuses. At San Jose State, we offer direct support to our students by providing them with one-on-one advising, whether it's academic, personal support, and connecting them to resources that are relative to their needs. For students who are incoming, we do have resources. For example, we have our annual Undocu-Spartan Summer Academy. Last year was our very first year implementing it, and this year around, we're going to continue this ongoing event. It is virtual, and hopefully in the near future, we will be able to host students on campus, but it's really an opportunity for us to be able to engage with the students, help them build community, and also provide them with resources and information that will prepare them for their time at the four-year university. Throughout the time there, we connect students to our various campus partners by hosting workshops or providing them with office hours on our campus. And we work really closely with offices such as the Office of Financial Aid, or Counseling and Psychological Services, as well as our Career Center and other advising offices on campus. We also connect very closely with our community resources. As you can see here, the partnerships that we take on is really meant to help and connect our students to organizations and resources that maybe are not part of our university system. So you will see something very similar in other campuses as well. For students who are thinking about, how do I qualify for in-state tuition through some of those policies like AB 540, and how do I go about applying for the California Dream Act? There are, they can contact our office by either giving us a call or by shooting us an email. And then we will work with them in setting up an appointment to really plan out what does it mean to be able to access a higher education at San Jose State. So we're able to cover information over whether or not they can qualify for in-state tuition under any of the policies, whether or not they have DACA, and also help address what their financial gap will look like and what are the resources that they can tap into in order to cover that financial gap. It's really important for students to make informed decisions and be able to know what to expect every single year that they're enrolled in school, especially if they're attending a four-year university, which tends to be a pretty pricey, but it's not impossible to pay for that tuition at no cost to the student. It just requires planning, and then we know that at the end of this presentation, we will provide folks with resources that they can check out and to find out more information about scholarships or other paid opportunities that students can take advantage of. In order to stay updated with us, please feel free to check out our social media. We update our social media with resources and events, not just from our center, but also within other campus partners and community partners. And we also have a newsletter for students and family members to be able to stay up to date with resources and information that impacts undocumented students. And so with all of that, I do want to introduce Beatriz San Juan, who will be sharing, her personal story and her journey around being a student and being a DACA holder. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ana. Hi, everyone. My name is Beatriz San Juan, and I am a community program manager at Girl Scouts of Northern California. Today, more than anything, I am here as a DACA recipient from the first generation of 2012. I had DACA for the past 8 years, luckily, and I will share some information for applicants, to all applicants and to applicants going to college. Today, as you can see, many people came together from different organizations and different programs here to provide you with their experiences and the information that they put together. And that's why I want to start this presentation or this slide with saying find community. I know that for me at the beginning, I felt like it was really hard because I was the first generation as a DACA recipient. To every office I went, to every program I went, I didn't know what it meant for me to be there sometime as a DACA recipient. We were the first ones, and sometimes people didn't know how to go about serving us. And I think that what has helped me survive like that experience is always finding community, seeking, counselors, resources, and friends that are going through the same things or through similar experiences as you. So definitely I wanted to start off with saying that find friends, family, and professors, mentors, counselors that are there for you and that do work towards like supporting the immigrant community. But I also wanted to share about those, the details that sometimes may go unnoticed and sometimes we may forget about. So I did want to throw in some recommendations and some tips to all DACA applicants of some of the things that may go unnoticed. So like such as set reminders for DACA renewals. Sometimes it feels like, oh, okay, we got our permit and we're going to renew in 2 years, but 2 years can go pretty quick. So what I do sometimes, I put it on my phone 6 months before, which is 180 days, my DACA expires. I put a reminder to start looking out for applying. Sometimes we don't know where DACA is going to be within a year or a year and a half, but it's still okay to put it on your calendar. I know a couple of people that because of this past year, so much changes had happened, they didn't know if to apply 6 months in advance, 9 months in advance, because sometimes when we applied too early, like I applied once a year in advance and then my DACA overlapped. So instead of getting 2 years after the expiration date, I got a year and a half, which still is a blessing because I didn't know if I was gonna be able to apply 6 months before it was expiring at that time. But definitely it is something to keep in mind. And when I say find community, I also mean stay informed. I keep 3 emails, one for spam, one for my personal stuff, like school and like jobs, but also there I have like emails and newsletters from organizations and centers for the immigrant community as the Undocumented Center that we have today here. We have the Office of Immigrant Relations. And sometimes we try to get our information from mainstream media, but most often it would be like the law offices, newsletters, and the the centers for the immigrant community that will have more accurate information. So I try to check their newsletters to know more about my status and what is it that's going on. Also, register to know your rights trainings. I thought that after 2 decades of being an immigrant, I knew pretty much how to survive since I was a baby. But when I went to these to these know your rights trainings, I learned about way more about being prepared in case of an emergency. Unfortunately, it is the ugly truth of our status or of our reality. And sometimes even small tips, like for example, some things I learned is to have a law office or a response team phone number on my contacts, even having them on speed dial. And it could be very triggering sometimes being at those trainings, but it's very necessary. Another thing that I wanted to share, or a recommendation with everyone, is in my experience, I never foresee really what it would be like having a social security. So I really didn't know what that meant. And I came from a family that it's full, like, undocumented immigrant community. I didn't come from a family that there was a mixed status or like a younger sibling that had social security. So I didn't know what it meant to have a social security. So I say take financial literacy resources, go to trainings, webinars, ask around, because sometimes it's more than just keeping your social security in your drawer. I know some people carry their social securities, and I know a lot of friends in my community that may have lost their social security because of that, or also learning cybersecurity. Like, I didn't know that you're not supposed to send like your social security through email, but I learned that through cybersecurity webinars. So those are one of the things that when you're new to this country or new to the social security system, it's like those tips you might want to like gather or sometimes go unnoticed. So I'm here to share that with you. Also, save your DACA application copies. Sometimes you might apply with one law office, but then switch to another law office for different reasons. And just every time you apply, your lawyer asks you like, sometimes like they go through a full screening, and then it's helpful to have your DACA applications from past years so you don't catch yourself in a short time notice and not knowing exactly, because sometimes these meetings can be triggering and you might not remember exactly information about your migration. So having your past DACA application copies is very important. I know that it may seem obvious, but I have heard many stories of like friends and families that didn't keep their DACA applications and didn't know or were nervous about, like, maybe I put this month that I moved this address, or maybe I put that month. And it would be very nerve-wracking not knowing that and then having to request those records. And then if you can, apply to advance parole once COVID guidelines permits and your lawyer advises that it is safe to travel. I didn't travel during the time that we were allowed to travel for different reasons, and I regret it very much. So take it from me as a person that I was working and going to school full time, both doing both full time. So I always felt like next semester or next summer or like when time is right. But as we have seen in the past years, DACA is a system that is in some ways has taken a lot of hits, and we don't know where it's going to go. And we didn't know what would happen. And my advice from a DACA recipient to newly applicants is look into doing advanced parole. I also know that it can be very triggering, and just planning to go back home and like visiting, and like for that, I'd say if you're experiencing that, seek out some wellness resources or speak to, sometimes there's resources I know with the county where like you could seek out to speak to a therapist or someone about it. But do not take this on your own, because there's a whole community out there for you. If we can have the next slide. To all students, so from an alumni, San Jose State alumni, to newly graduating high schoolers, my advice to you is think about your school when you go to college. Well, before college, your school is your job. But if you yet don't think about it that way, your school is your job. Balance your time studying with breaks. When I was in college, I used to not balance my time, and I would work sometimes 5 or like 10 hours like on homework, and I didn't realize I was not being as efficient if I would have taken breaks. I sometimes would go like 3 days without sleeping. Don't do that. I know that sometimes in college, everyone takes pride in saying, I pulled an all-nighter. Don't do that. One time I also woke up with a panic attack in the library. So I know that there's so much going on and there's so many pressures, and you might find yourself working and going to school, even though we have the California Dream Act, even though there's scholarships out there. I say balance your time with school, work, and breaks. Give yourself some time to rest and for your body to catch up with you. Also, I didn't graduate in 4 years, and I thought that that was okay because it gave me more time to process the knowledge I was learning through all these classes. So that's something to think about too. So that being said, take care of your mental and emotional and physical health. Take time to think about how your body is feeling, where your mind is at, if you can focus in a sentence, for example, and if you cannot, maybe you should assess that. And definitely check in with, your community, with friends, family, your doctors, whoever you must give that space to your health. And when choosing classes, something I learned from a friend in the business department, she really liked doing this Excel sheet, and she taught me this skill that I hadn't thought about, or this knowledge, where she would say choosing classes is and choosing professors is like employing, a whole field of study to the knowledge, to the person that you want to become. So sometimes you'll learn about rate your professor or rate my professor, and you'll think it's best to go for the professor with the ECA, maybe because I'm already working 40 hours a week and I might as well pick that one rather than the one that gets the lowest grade because they're tough graders. Well, I'd just say, think about who you want to learn from. Sometimes it helps also to Google them and look up the reports they publish. That also helps you make a decision. If you're studying abroad, speak to your college advisors and lawyers months in advance. I know that when you go around college and you're looking at flyers, it may say, if you're thinking of studying abroad, plan out like 6 months in ahead. Sometimes for us, at the time for me was 6 months or a year in advance because I didn't know what DACA would look like. My counselor didn't know what DACA looked like, so we were going in circles. I actually didn't end up applying, but I would recommend that you do. And then a must visit resource centers. They're centers at your universities. Take space. Do not shy away from taking the resources. I know I used to shy away, but think about it this way. There's a whole force of people out there fundraising for you to take those resources. So do not think to walk away from those. And last, apply for scholarships, fellowships, and internships. Even if you do not fulfill all the requirements, submit application. What is the worst that can happen? You get rejected. Most often, and this is true for a lot of communities, is that sometimes we are harsh on ourselves and we are hypercritical. And if we think that we don't fulfill one requirement or one eligibility listed on the job, that maybe we shouldn't apply. Just go for it and apply and believe in yourself and ask around. I'm sure that you will be able to build up to it. And then if we can have the next slide. To everyone, to the students, to the applicants, to the parents here, I just wanted to say, being an immigrant can be very exhausting. So I grabbed this quote from the NAP Ministry, which is an account on Instagram. And I like this quote because it says, "You are exhausted physically, spiritually, because the pace created by the system is for machines and not a magical and divine human being. You are enough. Rest." And then I want to wrap up this section with saying, cheer up. Despite all the opposition of the system created to defeat us, we're still present, united in community and pushing forward. So if we can have the next slide. And as a Girl Scouts community program manager, I wanted to share some of the opportunities we have with Girl Scouts. I am located in San Jose, and see me as a resource. We have opportunities at no cost to families for girls wanting to join between K through 12, girls that may or may not want to register for troops or be a member but want to go to summer camp, girls that might want to get training, professional development experience, you could apply to the counselor in training, and we could offer it at no cost. And also volunteers. For any applicants here that already are above age but might be looking for personal and professional development, we have opportunities. Also for paid opportunities, you could look on our website. But I really want to say, reach out to me and I'll be able to help. So yeah, with that, I'm going to pass it over, I believe, to Jamie.
Before Jamie speaks, I would just like to add a few things. You guys got a lot of information today. And what I want you to acknowledge is that this happened together in community, and that in community we learn. I would also add that you were surrounded by brilliance and knowledge here, that we have never brought all these three elements together in one presentation, and that's incredibly exciting. And so please remember that you are not alone, that we are blessed to live in California, because not all the states have all the support, and we are blessed in particular to live in Santa Clara County and have an Office of Education that's willing to give this focus to our students and to their parents. And just remember, there is always support, and know that DACA exists because young people created it, because young people demanded it, and because young people organized for it. This did not happen because people were good. This happened because young people said, we have a right to this. You have to create something that responds to us. And that is what young people forced the federal government to do. So in continuing with this program, in fighting for the things that we need, we continue traditions that have been created by past generations. And so with that, we invite you to take this, consider this seriously, because it is an opportunity. And now we'll go over resources.
Thank you, Teresa, for those last words. And I really cannot emphasize enough the partnership that we have with the Santa Clara County Office of Immigrant Relations. They have all these resources for you, for all of our listeners out there, for students and parents. We have brochures provided by the Office of Immigrant Relations that are linked on our website. We have them as a reference here for you. If you want to go follow these slides and click the link, it's there. We also have, let me forward these slides here, more resources than you can ever imagine. There's so much information. And we also have links for scholarships also provided by the Office of Immigrant Relations, De Anza, Foothill College. The theme over and over again is that everybody here in the community is here to support. So I just want to give my thanks, my gratitude to Erica, to Angelica, Anna, and Beatrice for your heartfelt sharing today, and for just your show of support. And if you guys have any questions about the Keeping the Dream Alive event, please contact us at parentengagement.seccoe.org. And if you have any questions for feedback, feel free to contact us using our feedback form, or just email me as well. Thank you guys so much for all of your time and for joining us today. We'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.